All right. Ms. Zoller, are you online?
And Cherie as well is trying to get in. There's Martha Zoller and Cherie Dennis.
Ms. Zoller?
Sherry.
Hello.
Ms. Zoller, can you hear me?
She's leaving.
I can hear you now.
All right, we have a quorum of the Budget Committee. We will get started. First item on the Budget Committee, item 1.
All right, can everybody hear me? Cool. I'm gonna try to drive and. All right, our first item is our FY 2022 federal formula grant allocations. This has already been approved by the board. We just have to adjust some of the allocations for the new and expanding charters. And there was a slight decrease in the amount from US Ed of $33,467, which brings our total grant amount not to exceed $592,205,738.
Any questions for item 1? Item 1, we move to consent agenda. Item 2.
All right. This is our FY 2022 Federal Charter School Program Grant Awards. The Federal Charter Schools Program provides funding to state educational agencies with the purpose of expanding the number of high-quality charter schools available to students across the nation by providing financial assistance for the planning, program design, and initial implementation of new charter schools, and disseminating the best practices of existing high-quality charter schools. Georgia's Federal Charter Schools Program Grant is open to all charter schools that meet the federal definition of a charter school and are newly approved charter schools or existing charter schools that meet the dissemination criteria. The attached list of new state and local charter schools will receive planning and/or implementation grants to assist with the costs associated with planning of a new charter school or initial costs associated with opening a charter school. This total grant is not to exceed $6,525,000.
Any questions on item 2? Ms. Rice?
No.
You good? Okay. Item 3.
This is our contract with Frontline Education. The purpose of this contract is to support the recruitment and retention of highly qualified teachers in rural school districts. Teacher recruitment is a significant challenge in rural Georgia. There are not enough education graduates entering the profession at a rate to fill the teacher vacancies in our schools. Additionally, many rural systems lack the staffing to conduct robust state and national recruiting efforts. Frontline Education software will provide the platform needed by rural systems to actively recruit and hire candidates from the largest active pool of K-12 job seekers that meets the needs of the district. This total contract amount is not to exceed $289,720. And I would like to make a note that in the recommendation, it's for 31 local education agencies, not 33. So there's
Okay. Note that change. Any questions? We have some members of our Rural Office and Innovation staff here. Y'all want to say some words on this budget item?
Thank you, and we are excited about this tool being in the hands of some of our rural districts down in Southwest Georgia. It will be Southwest and Chattahoochee, Flint, Risa areas that will be the districts that are served, and we feel like this will be a proactive way for those districts to reach out for different positions that are hard to fill, especially in those rural areas.
Right. Any further questions? Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Item 4.
All right, this is our grant for multi-sensory reading instruction training, and it is to provide opportunities for identified schools to ensure the necessary infrastructure and supports are available for teachers to meet the needs of every student and improve outcomes for students with disabilities and other struggling readers. The multi-sensory reading instruction training grant provides financial resources to 10 LEAs on behalf of federally identified Title I schools to provide training and resources to meet the needs of struggling readers outlined in their improvement plans. The total grant amount is not to exceed $1,147,887.
Any questions or comments?
I have one on that.
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Rice.
Is Stephanie on the line?
I was looking for Dr. Johnson. I did not see
Maybe.
her.
What is, give me a little idea about the multisensory. Is that something along the line of structured reading now that kids, that we're seeing is really needed, especially with kids that have disabilities? Does anybody know what that? Okay.
Hi.
If you will come up to the mic,
Okay,
thank you.
sure thing. We're providing this opportunity, for multisensory reading instruction training to ensure that our early literacy, those teachers that provide either EIP supports or supports to students with disabilities, it's just another way to approach reading instruction, giving teachers the opportunity to use more tactile supports when they're trying to teach reading. So some of the trainings that we are funding through this grant are Orton Gillingham, which is probably one that you've heard of before, and Wilson Reading. Just really trying to provide the resources and support for our teachers as they're working with struggling readers.
That's what I call structured reading.
Yeah.
in that program. Thank you.
Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Rice. Any further questions? Item 5.
Item 5 is a grant for instructional supports and teacher training to address readiness and literacy grant. And this is to provide financial resources for multisensory reading training opportunities and resources to support early reading assistance programs for struggling readers and those students with risk factors for dyslexia. 31 LEAs will receive assistance to ensure they have the necessary infrastructure and supports for teachers to improve outcomes in literacy. The total grant amount is $4,114,068.
Any questions?
I've just got another comment on
Yes,
that.
ma'am.
With the dyslexia, because there is definitely coming out some work that is being done with the committee that is looking at the rule. It was a law that was put in by the governor, and now people are looking at how to form a rule. Of course, the DOE will take the suggestions and form the rule. But in this, I hope that there will be, and I'm sure Stephanie will, some collaboration with this dyslexia group that is looking at this so that all of these things align and the best practices are in there. Because we are discovering that there's a certain way of structured reading that dyslexia kids learn, and they never have to get out of Tier 1. So this is something I hope we collaboratively really work together with. So that's just, thanks.
Great, me too. Thank you, Ms.
Helen?
Rice. Yes.
This is Sherry online. Item number 4, the speaker who got up and spoke about what kind of multisensory programs would be made available, and she specifically mentioned Orton Gillingham, and that's a very, very strong curriculum for the support of dyslexia.
Yes,
So kind of goes along with what you were saying.
thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions on item 5? Item 6.
Item 6 is our grant for advanced placement teacher training grant. Purpose of this grant is to increase the number of students participating in AP coursework and scoring 3 or higher on 2 or more AP exams, and to increase the percentage of graduates completing an advanced academic pathway. The AP teacher training grants will provide teachers to attend AP Summer Institute training for their subject area in order to maintain or grow AP programs in the schools. The training will increase teacher knowledge of rigorous coursework and expand the opportunities for AP classes. Grant amounts were awarded based on the number of AP courses currently offered in the school, and the grant amount is not to exceed $199,200.
Any questions? always like to see these types of grants to fund education for boots on the ground. All right, and item 7, anything to cover there?
These are our 50 to 250.
Does anyone have any questions on item 7? Any of the particular contracts there? Hearing none, is there any debate on moving items 1 through 7 to the consent agenda for review tomorrow? Hearing none, those items shall be moved to the consent agenda. And any further business of the Budget Committee? Budget Committee stands adjourned.
All right. We will commence with state schools at 1:15, so we stand at recess until then. Out of recess and going to reconvene the meeting, and I'm going to hand it over to the chair of the State Schools Committee, Ms. Lisa Kennemore. Lisa, I'll leave it with you.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Oh, I'm sorry.
On the State Schools Committee agenda today. Mic on? We're waiting on you, Mr. Long. Dr. Moore, Dr. Tucci?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, my goodness.
You ready, Ms. Kennedy?
Yes, I am.
Thank you all for meeting with us this afternoon. You may just notice someone new sitting at your table. This is one of our wonderful interpreters, and you'll see on the screen up here, we have some individuals that are joining us virtually. And so we worked out a system where you'll see her interpreting, she may be voicing, so we thank her for being here. So today, as part of our state board, one of the things that is your responsibility is to approve curriculums for us. And so the first one we broached is English language arts. And it's taken us a couple of years to get to this point. A lot of vetting, a lot of work from the people behind me and the people you see on the screen, as well as lots of people at the school and parents. We have two wonderful board members, Ms. Kennemore and Ms. Rice, that were holding our hands each step of the way through this process. So we're really proud of where we are today. And so if you adopt this, then next time we'll come and we'll be purchasing materials, which you'll see as part of this presentation. They'll talk to you about our rollout plan with it. And so once we put ELA to bed, the next content area we will address will be math. And so as we're working with our interpreter, you'll notice that we're going to give her a little bit of lag time between when people are talking. So if you see her hands are moving and she's signing, just hold until she finishes and then we'll move forward. So that said, we're going to turn the rest of the presentation over to Dr. Cassandra Matthews. She's the State Schools Chief Academic Officer. So I'm going to turn it over to Sam.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having us. We know we have a short period of time to present to you today, so I'll just briefly have my colleague, Dr. Stacy Tucci, say hello. But we have two virtual participants today, two of our amazing ELA consultants who are joining us virtually, and I'd like to give them a few minutes to introduce themselves and tell you a little bit more about their background. So we'll start with Karen.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Karen Blankenship, and I have been a consultant with the Georgia Academy for the Blind for quite a few years, and I'm honored to be the consultant on this project because I think this is groundbreaking and very exciting. So I am just honored to be a part of this brain trust in Georgia to make this happen. So thank you.
And Nancy?
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Nancy Kelly Jones. And I am a product of the Georgia educational system. And now I'm ready to give back to the students here in Georgia. We feel like the landscape here has changed significantly, and I'm so thrilled and honored to be a part of this process. I want to let you know that this has been an amazing process, and I'm so proud to work with this team, with the committees, especially all of the different stakeholders. It's shown us how much they all value our students. And we feel, again, the landscape has significantly changed. Working with these people from the state level to the administrators, to the educators, of course, those are my favorite people. They're the boots on the ground, the parents, everyone involved. Oh, and by the way, I've been a teacher, an ELA teacher for 35 years in middle school. That's my favorite age, and my passion is reading. And then the last few years I was a librarian, but I've been working as a national trainer for bilingual methodology. And again, I'm so passionate focusing on Atlanta area School for the Deaf as well as Georgia School for the Deaf. I'm honored again to be a part of this group. Thank you.
And thank you to our consultants. We have really leaned into their expertise throughout this entire process. They bring with them a wealth of knowledge, and we appreciate the work that they've done, not just with our committee, but also the work that they're currently doing in the schools. And we welcome them to chime in throughout the presentation. So here we wanted to give you all an idea of who the members of our Ela Curriculum Committee are. And not only did we have administrators from the local schools, we also included teachers, of course, and 2 of our board members who were a part of the process. You've already met Karen and Nancy, who were a huge part of this. And how we went about the vetting process is we gave our committee members a research-based rubric that they used to evaluate each of the curriculums for consideration. We did have to make modifications to the existing rubric because we had to adapt it basically to kind of address the unique needs of our students who are blind, visually impaired, and or deaf, hard of hearing. So just to do a little deeper dive into what the teams look like, you could see each of the curriculums as well as the members of the team, and they each had a team lead. And we had a very diverse group of stakeholders. Again, school leaders. We had teachers across all grade bands. We also included our speech language pathologists, our ASL specialists, our literacy coaches, and our assessment director. So we really had a broad and diverse group of experts, if you will. And we particularly really depended on our teacher feedback because, to Nancy's point, they really are the boots on the ground. So we really leaned into their expertise and just asked for their feedback. So as they were vetting each of the curriculums, what we had each team do is to come back and do a presentation. And here are the components of each team's presentation. We wanted to know a little bit more background about each of the proposed curriculums. We wanted to hear the research. We wanted to see the impact of the curriculum's implementation, particularly the targeted student population. One of the things I want to highlight is that there are not many evidence-based curriculums specific to our student population. You'll hear about 2 today, so we are aware that we'll have to make significant modifications to the curriculums that we do decide to adopt, and we're ready to do that. They also included the targeted grade bands, and a part that was particularly important is how much time is it going to require for us to get our teachers trained and ready for implementation as we're kind of thinking about that professional learning piece. Also, the amount of time that for instruction, and we wanted them to really get an idea of what the materials and resources look like. They had links so they could go back and kind of look on their own, but we wanted them to have, if they were available videos. Oftentimes we read about curriculums, we hear about curriculums, but teachers will ask, what does that look like in practice? So what we wanted was for videos to kind of show what that actually looked like with students.
All right, so as Dr. Matthews mentioned, our committee used a rubric to evaluate each of the potential curricula. And we just wanted to give you a very brief look at the beginning page of the rubric. It was several pages long, and it highlighted specific skills that we know are research-based around improving children's literacy. And the purpose for using this rubric was to ensure that the teachers were using evidence-based and high-leverage practices in the classroom. We want to make sure we're using things that we know actually move the needle around student literacy. I think it was Stan in one of the last presentations we had who asked a question about parent engagement and how we're going to make sure that parents are able to support ELA, English Language Arts, at home. And so one of the things that we are really focusing on is gathering parent feedback. I'm a parent of a deaf adult who uses ASL, and I know how challenging it is to support English language arts at home, especially when you're doing it through a second language. And so I was really impressed with this committee's commitment to collecting parent feedback. The committee has mapped out a plan to post all of the ELA curricula information on all 3 of the state schools' websites. The information will be presented in English, Spanish, and American Sign Language, and parents will have an opportunity to view all of the sample curricula materials. They'll be able to provide direct feedback on each of the curricula through an online survey. And we really want to know directly from our parents what it is they need from us to build their capacity around supporting language and literacy at home with their child. So the ELA committee is going to use this survey feedback to develop virtual parent support sessions that will be scheduled throughout the 2022-23 school year, where parents are going to be able to join these sessions, work with teachers around how they can support that curricula instruction at home, and also to make a parent cohort too, so that parents who have kids in the same grade level or parents who have children who are reading on the same level can start getting together and building a cohort and building support both with the school and with each other as a parent community. Yes. Okay.
Next, we just want to show you, these are the curriculums that we're requesting approval for. The first 2, the vendor is McGraw-Hill, and that's Wonders and StudySync. And this is a comprehensive ELA curriculum that serves grades K through 6 for Wonders, and then StudySync is 6-12, and we'll implement that across all 3 schools. The third bullet you see is Unique. That is a cross-content curriculum, which is grounded in social studies and science, but it has an ELA component, and that is specific to students with complex needs. And so that is a pre-K through 12 curriculum. We also wanted to include the quotes and the terms, and you'll see that the amount is for Unique. It includes the professional learning costs. The vendors will provide training, not just a one-time training, but they'll continue to support us and do boosters throughout the school year. And then the last one is the quote for StudySync and Wonders.
All right, so as Dr. Matthews said earlier, there are not a lot of curriculums that were developed specifically for children who are deaf and hard of hearing. There are 3 programs that we are currently piloting in AASD and GSD. These programs are the Bilingual Grammar Curriculum, Foundations for Literacy, and Fingerspelling Our Way to Reading. These are all either comprehensive reading programs or they are supplemental interventions that can be used to remediate skills where students have a delay, a current delay in their reading ability. All of these have an evidence base, and they are all developed specifically to support students who are deaf and hard of hearing. Fingerspelling Our Way to Reading and the Bilingual Grammar Curriculum are specific to children who are using American Sign Language as their primary instructional language. Foundations for Literacy can be used with children who are using spoken English, children who are using American Sign Language, or children who are using both of those languages, so true bilingual, bimodal students. We are going to use these in addition to the comprehensive ELA curriculum. So each ELA teacher will be assigned one of those curriculums that Dr. Matthews just presented, and they will also be assigned an ancillary or a supplemental curriculum or intervention to focus on those unique learning needs for our DHH students. Most of these have already been purchased as we've been piloting them in the schools. However, the bilingual grammar curriculum will be piloted this year. We actually just finished our first training. We're working with 3 teachers who are in lower elementary, upper elementary, and middle school, and we're looking at what that rollout looks like for the bilingual grammar curriculum and how that will interface with these other comprehensive ELA curriculums.
So next, we just wanted to give you an idea of the funding sources. So One is the L4GA grant, which is a 4-year grant that we received several years ago. We are extremely grateful for the ESSER reserve. The CARES Act funds will also be used to help us with purchasing. And then Dr. Kenny Moore has set aside state funds for 2 full-time literacy coaches. Right now, we have a full-time literacy coach at AASD, which is our largest school, but he's committed to hiring 2 additional full-time literacy coaches to serve in our other 2 schools.
All right, so this is a high-level timeline, and it outlines the major milestones in the ELA curriculum rollout. And I just want to briefly highlight a couple of dates. You'll see the March through April dates are when we are sharing the information about the curricula with parents, and also when we are going to be gathering those online survey comments so that we can start to develop those parent sessions. You'll see that in April through June, we'll be developing those accessible materials. So curriculum materials that may need to be produced in Braille, curriculum materials that may need to be produced through ASL videos. We'll be developing those throughout the summer. In July, we will have our state school staff back, and we will conduct pre-planning. And during that pre-planning, all of our teachers, as well as our support staff, so paraprofessionals, SLPs, literacy coaches, ASL specialists, everybody is going to be trained in these ELA curriculums. So we have a continuity of instruction, if you will. We have a team where everybody knows what the left hand and the right hand are doing so that we are all able to support these ELA initiatives. Last but not least, you'll see that in August, we are looking at a full ELA rollout. So every single ELA teacher in all 3 schools will have an evidence-based ELA curriculum to implement on day 1 when we come back for the 22-23 school year.
So we'd just like to thank our 2 board members who've been along this long journey with us. So we just want to say thank you to Ms. Rice and Ms. Kennemore for your support and your insight and for participating in our meetings. And we just have a little something we'd like to do.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's Lisa. Well, I just have to say, I mean, we did get to sit in on a couple of these, and that finger
stuff.
Well, that was just phenomenal.
That was really good.
As far as everybody here having a chance to see the standards, they have not, as you know. So this will be an education for them because, as you said, they're in English and people can view them. I would be interested to know too, when we send this out to parents and you do your little survey, do you send it out into any other different schools that are like ours to see, in a way, to see what they get a read on the standards, what they're thinking? Have we sent it out to any professional groups in colleges and universities that have looked at them?
We had not considered that, but I'm going to definitely take note and get, external, stakeholder feedback. That would be helpful. Like kind.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have connections within the Deaf Ed teacher program at Georgia State University and also Valdosta State University. So I think what we could do is contact the leads in those teacher prep programs and have them give us some feedback on the ELA curriculums that have been targeted. And Georgia State University was a lead university in developing foundations for literacy and fingerspelling our way to reading. Georgia State got a $10 million grant from the Institute of Education Sciences, and they actually grew those 2 programs here, or those 2 curriculums here in Georgia.
I'd love to get a read on those 2 also, because I think the more that we recite and see it, the better we'll be with what we have. These are great, but
yeah, I agree with Helen. When we were watching and going along, on the Zoom meeting with the finger spelling, it was just amazing. And how the students just picked up on everything and how it reinforced everything that was being taught. So that was great. And I would like to hear more information about GSU and everything that they have concerning what they developed and all that. That would be great to have as well.
We will be sure to share. Karen and Nancy, did you have anything you'd like to share? No pressure.
Well, I think we have looked at all the research. We have reached out to experts in the field, but we that doesn't limit us to what else we can do to get more feedback and input from other people. So I can check with programs of visual impairments to see what they're recommending, or it's typically the elementary ed programs with reading as a minor or a major. So certainly we can reach out and get more information.
Thank you.
I just appreciate y'all looking at all avenues with this and really spending some time with it. And I know when you put it out there, we have to make sure that people go to it and really try to look through it and really make good choices with it and understand it and have clarity with it. If not, we'll just send it out there and nobody responds, and that doesn't do us any good. And it doesn't help our board here to understand how really these things function in a different way. But it's so moving in the same way that we're doing with what we've done with this dyslexia, that we were talking about, the structured reading and literacy, where we're moving towards, especially in our universities now, we're talking with them a little bit more about structured reading and what it takes to have something consistently in line so that kids get it reinforced each year and year. And by the time they graduate, they have a pretty fluid with not only spelling words and writing and sight words and vocabulary and phonics and all those things that make it. But man, that finger reading was spelling. It was so real.
I would just like to say that we appreciate the opportunity you all are giving us, because, for example, if you were in a local school system, say Fulton, what you would be given is the curriculum, is the deaf and hard of hearing teacher or the BI teacher. You'd have to adapt it for your kids. We took a very unique approach to doing it to make it specific for our students, again, considering the communities that they come from. And I think as you sat here today, and I just took it and I was talking with my new colleagues, when Superintendent Woods came on board, he tasked the leaders to tear down these silos. And when you sat here and you watched some of the budget items, the presentations, a lot of it was literacy focused, ELA focused, and that's our background. So it warms my heart to sit here as a group. And we've been talking a lot today about literacy, about reading and things like that. And it shows you how we were working cross-divisionally. That was school improvement, that was curriculum folks, and Dr. Dooley and Stephanie Johnson. And we wouldn't have had that probably years ago. This is an exciting time. We appreciate the support of you all, the support of our leadership, our colleagues here, and I appreciate the work of Dr. Matthews and Dr. Tucci for leading this, as well as our colleagues on the call. So thank you.
Thank you.
Was a comment you made, you said that the curriculums must make significant modifications to them. And so how will that come about, what process?
Making them accessible. So for our BVI, our blind visually impaired students, we would have to have the resources brailled. And Karen has done a lot of research, and many of the materials have already been brailled in other states. So we're reaching out to them for some support, and then we're blessed to have a AMP
Accessible Materials Project.
Right at AASD. So we can do the videos in-house, which will be a minimum cost. Yeah.
So I'll give you a very brief example. When students are learning early literacy skills, when you have a typical ELA curriculum, they may be learning letter sound correspondence. So they learn that M makes the sound. But for our kids who are using ASL, they're going to learn that M is connected to a finger-spelled handshake. So it's a parallel skill. We're still covering that early phonics skill, but we are modifying it so it becomes visually accessible for our students. Another example in StudySync that has a middle school and a high school component, they have videos where the students can watch other students have exemplar discussions about a text. Well, our students aren't able to hear those discussions, and so what we'll do is we will refilm those student discussions, but we will film them with students using ASL to have those exemplar discussions. So a lot of it will really be about accessibility, but that is something that we have to consider. How much do we modify without losing the integrity that the research tells us, about how this works? Fidelity is very important when it comes to making sure that we retain efficacy.
Spell it, Siri, can you spell?
Any other board members? Because all of us are the board for the state school. Any comments regarding?
Thank you for your work. Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you. I just wanted to add one additional comment. We are using parent incentives with Georgia Mobile Audiology and Georgia Pines, where we have literacy baskets, if you will. So if a parent uses the Georgia Pines service, or if a parent comes and goes through a diagnostic examination with Georgia Mobile Audiology, they get a literacy basket, if you will. And so it has free books, it has information on how to support discussions about books at home between yourself and your child. And so one of the things that we could potentially consider is incentivizing our parents to fill out this online survey. If you fill out the online survey, then you get this literacy basket. So maybe we could think about doing some type of literacy-based incentive to push up those survey numbers, because I know lots of people don't always want to respond to a survey. So maybe we could have an incentive there to help make that a little more effective.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we gonna be placing this on the
Budget.
Agenda? Yes, yes.
So 30
30
days.
days.
the 30 days,
Thir-
yeah,
the
right.
30 days.
Okay, just wanna make
I
sure
sent
had
an
time.
email that Dr. Moore sent me with attachments for all board members to kind of go through and take a look at and just see what we have before us, so that we will have an idea of everything that they were talking about, briefing us on, so. Thank you, Dr. Matthews, Dr. Tucci.
Thank you.
Dr. Moore.
Right. Thank you all.
Doctor.
Madam Chair, does that conclude the business of the committee?
Anything else, Dr. Moore, that you would like to bring before us?
Thank you for your time today, and we'll meet next week.
I'm glad you're doing better and you're feeling well.
Thank you for reaching out, appreciate that.
Good to see you.
Okay, thank you. That concludes the business of state schools. Thank you.
Very good, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
All right, we've got like 2 minutes, so we'll be recessed until 1:45. Run what you gotta do. 1:45 we will begin promptly. Yeah. Well, that's your right. Tiffany?
Tiffany here?
to the vice chair of the board and the vice chair of the charter school committee, Mr. Stan Charney. I'll leave it with you, sir.
All right, thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm sitting in for my friend and colleague Scott Sweeney, who could not be with us this afternoon. He is the chair of this committee. We do have 6 items on the agenda, and I'm going to let Ms. Taylor run through those. But for the information for those who are attending in the audience and those watching via Zoom, we also have a presentation by the Museum School of Avondale. I hope I got that title right. And that is for information purposes only. There will it's not an action item, but they asked for permission to address this committee. We've given them the opportunity to do that. We also have Buzz Brockway here from the State Charter Schools Commission, and we'll give them a minute if they want to make some comment about matters that are relevant to the museum school as soon as the museum school is complete. We've asked them to limit their comments to 5 minutes. We'll be a little flexible with that, but I hope that those of you who are on this committee will take the opportunity to ask some questions if you have any, because they are well represented. And we'll let them introduce themselves at the time that they're asked to speak. So, having said that, Tiffany, you go ahead and start us off.
Absolutely. The first item on our agenda is a request for a charter system contract amendment for Lumpkin County Schools. Lumpkin County Schools is seeking an amendment to its charter system contract to add a college and career academy. The development of the Lumpkin County College and Career Academy will include a certification process through the Technical College System of Georgia and the requirement of a governing board that is reflective of the system's community and includes representation from key strategic partners. The Lumpkin County Board of Education approved this charter system contract amendment in October of 2021.
Any questions about this contract amendment? Is there any objection to this being added to the consent agenda? All right, hearing none, let's move on to item number 2.
Item number 2 is a request to approve a charter system renewal for Madison County Schools. Madison County Schools is seeking a renewal of its charter system contract. The Madison County Schools Board of Education approved the Madison County Schools charter system renewal petition in October of 2021. The Madison County Schools' mission is to graduate independent and productive citizens. They utilize their flexibility to provide whole group and small group instruction for all students, expand middle school courses for high school credit, AP, and dual enrollment opportunities for students to gain high school and post-secondary credits, incorporate new pathways within their new Broad River College and Career Academy, and to establish and support their Madison County Early Learning Center. If approved, Madison County's new contract would begin on July 1st, 2022, and expire on June 30th, 2027.
Any questions for Tiffany about the charter contract for Madison County Schools? This is not Madison, Georgia.
We do have
Madison. I get this all the time. This is the Madison County Schools. The county seat, I believe, is Danielsville. It's over in the Athens area. Any questions?
We do have the superintendent and some representatives available to speak if you have any questions for them.
North Madison. So. Any comments that the representatives from Madison County would like to make?
Good afternoon. This is Michael Wade, Superintendent of Madison County Schools. We're excited about the possibility of the renewal of our charter. We've been able to improve our student achievement success over the last several years due to being a charter system to continue to serve students in that manner. Thank you.
All right. Any other comment? Okay. Is there any objection from the committee members to having this added to the consent agenda? All right, hearing none, let's move on. Item 3.
Item number 3 is a request to amend charter school contracts for a number of charter schools for federal funding in-kind services agreements. So the official Code of Georgia annotated section 20-2-2068.1C states that a local board of education and local charter school may mutually collaborate and agree upon specific ways for some or all of the charter school's proportionate amount of federal funds to be provided by the local school system through in-kind services, with the terms of such mutual agreement to be included in the charter. The attached list of local charter schools are seeking to amend their contracts to include their in-kind services agreement. And the in-kind services using federal funds agreement has been approved by the local charter school governing board and the local board of education.
Tiffany, are there any representatives from any of these that are joining us virtually that?
No, we don't typically do them for procedural contract amendments.
Okay, great.
I'd just like to say Reginald Colbert is present.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? Any objection for this, to this being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, we'll do that. Item number 4.
Item number 4 is a request to approve the charter school renewal for Brighton Academy. Brighton Academy Charter School is seeking a renewal of its charter contract. The Douglas County Board of Education approved Brighton Academy's charter petition in July of 2021. Brighton Academy will focus on project-based learning and English learner education as a part of its essential and innovative features, and will serve approximately 846 students in grades kindergarten through 8. Enrollment will be open to any student who resides within the Douglas County school system. If approved, Brighton Academy's new contract would begin on July 1st, 2022, and expire on June 30th, 2027. And we do have representatives from Brighton Academy available to speak as well.
All right, with the representatives from Brighton Academy, please identify yourselves, and if you have some comments you'd like to make, we'd be glad to hear them.
Yes, this is Matt Markle representing Brighton Academy. I'm the governing board president. Just a quick few informal points. We're very happy with our last charter. We believe we were very successful. We became a nationally credentialed EL school, also became a national mentor school for that organization, and also successfully completed our COGNIA accreditation with a score of 330. Normal range for a peer school would be 278 to 283. And then in our current proposed charter, which you have in front of you, we have some well-developed but aggressive leadership development plans. Some plans to, as indicated in the charter, to increase participation with local community, also expand our extracurricular activity offering, and increase some what we'd like to call wraparound services for parents and students in the community, focusing on additional counseling and emphasizing on character education. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions from committee members for the representatives from Brighton or for Ms. Taylor? Any objection to this being placed on the consent agenda? All right, thank you for being with us today. All right, item number 5.
Item number 5 is a request to approve a new charter school contract for Utopian Academy for the Arts High School. The Clayton County Board of Education approved the Utopian Academy for the Arts High School's charter petition in June 2021. Utopian Academy's mission is through an industry-specific hands-on approach to learning. The Utopian Academy for the Arts High School will develop creative, scholarly, and entrepreneurial students who will transition to post-secondary education and career pathways inspired and prepared to become leaders in the field. Utopian Academy's planned essential and innovative features include classes in the film, television, and interactive entertainment sector as a supplement to the core curriculum, dual enrollment opportunities for eligible students seeking enrollment in college-level coursework, work-based learning opportunities that may include job shadowing, mentoring, and apprenticeships, and participation in film festivals, showcases, and other industry-related competitions. Utopian Academy will serve approximately 515 students in grades 9 through 12 by year 5 of its charter. Enrollment will be open to any student who resides within the Clayton County School District. And we do have representatives here in person for Utopian Academy. So I will call up Mr. Artesius Miller and his colleagues to share information with you.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're excited to be here. We bring you warm greetings on behalf of the fifth largest school system in the state of Georgia, that's Clayton County Schools. We're very excited about the relationship that we have to be able to expand our program to students. We were very blessed with the opportunity to serve students starting in 2014 with the approval of our middle school. It was approved by the State Charter Schools Commission of Georgia, which we're very grateful for their leadership and support. And our parents, our students have been very eager, very enthusiastic since we began in 2014 to be able to stay with us, where there will be a matriculation directly from middle school all the way through 12th grade. And we have received support from the local school system to be able to have a prized possession for students within the county. We are very unapologetic about expanding school choice options for students in our community, and we want to make sure that for the students that have been able to stay with us and for families that have been able to be a part of our community, they have this as an option to us. So this will be a really great opportunity for students to be able to extend upon the educational programs they would have received since the start of 6th grade. And we're happy to answer any questions that you may have. I have representatives from our board. Our new high school principal is present with us, our CFO, and our vice chair is virtual as well. But thank you so much for just the opportunity to be here today, and we're excited to continue to do the work.
Thank you very, very much for being here. Any questions for the representatives from Utopian, from the committee members? Any objection to having this placed on the consent agenda? All right, hearing none, it'll be on the consent agenda for tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Thank you.
For being here.
Thank you.
Item 6.
Item number 6 is a request to amend strategic waiver school system contract amendments. The 130 strategic waiver school systems have contracts that will expire on either June 30th, 2022 or June 30th, 2023. Each strategic waiver school system contract outlines 5 years of CCRPI accountability metrics and allows for the renewal of strategic waiver systems contracts if the system has met their accountability goals for at least 3 of those 5 years. Due to CCRPI changes and COVID-19 disruptions, there are only data available for 2 of the 5 years. An extension of the strategic waiver system contract terms will allow districts to continue to support student achievement and growth and address their operational needs as they work to restore and improve their offerings and systems from the interruptions of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Just so I make sure I understand from my own understanding, we're extending their waivers for 2 years.
Your contracts.
Contracts for 2 years so that they can meet the terms of the contract, which is to provide data, CCRPI data, correct?
Correct.
Any questions from the committee members? Any objection to having this placed on the consent agenda? All right, hearing none, we'll put that on the consent agenda as well. And before we move on, Tiffany, I just want to make sure we're looking at items 1 through 6. Yes. Will be placed on the consent agenda.
That is correct.
Is that everybody's understanding on this committee?
Yes.
All right. All right. Well, that's the business for today, but we have some, we've had a group from the Museum School of Avondale that has asked to address the board. Chairman Downey has granted that request to speak before this committee. I have 204, and we originally told them that they would have 5 minutes and then we would leave some time for questions. I'm going to be a little flexible with that, but I will kind of monitor it. But I want to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself, the rest of your group, and also then we'll start the clock when you start your presentation, okay?
Excellent, excellent. I'm Catherine Kelbaugh, the Executive Director and Founding Principal of the Museum School of Avondale Estates. And with me today is the Museum School's Board of Directors Vice Chair Janine Ivy, the Board of Directors Secretary Miriam Gibson, and our current Principal Mike Stewart. Ready? Okay. So first of all, we are extremely grateful for the opportunity to share with you today our challenging renewal circumstances. There are few spaces in which locally approved charter schools can present grievances, so this time is even more valuable and meaningful to our school because of that, so thank you. The Museum School, a DeKalb County charter school, we are in our 12th year of operations, serving 588 kindergarten through 8th grade students and 90 staff members and managing a wait list of over 800. I was last with you in 2017 when several of you approved, and in the case of Mr. Royal, actually signed our current 5-year charter. And that charter included aggressive academic, organizational, and financial goals. All the applicable goals of that term were met or exceeded, with the exception of a 4% increase of our free and reduced lunch percentage school-wide for each year of the charter term. And though we didn't hit that 4% annual goal, thanks to the dedication of our Student Recruitment Committee and our Diversity Committee, we did celebrate a significant increase in free and reduced lunch percentage, from 15% in 2016 to 29% in 2020. The Museum School embraces and celebrates its very diverse student body and staff. 46% of our students are students of color, 9% receive special education services, and 20% receive support through EIP, REP, or a 504 plan. The Museum School is truly an award-winning school. Most recently, the Museum School was awarded the 2019 Academic Georgia Charter School of the Year Award. The school has also been recognized by the Governor's Office, the Georgia Association of Secondary School Principals, the Georgia Association of Museums and Galleries, and the Georgia Council for the Social Studies. The Museum School's current 5-year charter ends June 30th, 2022. And after going through the full renewal process with the DeKalb County School District last fall, without explanation, without discussion, we learned through the posted agenda at the same time as the public that the DeKalb County school staff was recommending only a 3-year charter for the Museum School, along with 8 conditions. The DeKalb County Board approved this recommendation on November 8th after a less than 10-minute discussion and without any input from the school or pertinent details of the conditions, most notably the new revised lease. Now, to catch up on our facility history, the Museum School moved into the dilapidated former Forest Hills Elementary School building in the fall of 2012. After negotiating a 10-year lease with 2 5-year extension options, so essentially that allows us to occupy the building at least through 2032. In 2011, the facility was uninhabitable and required extensive renovations for safe occupation. So over 10 years and through 2 capital campaigns, the Museum School raised and invested over $7 million into the facility. Roofs were replaced, asbestos removed, a bridge built for ADA purposes, classrooms were renovated, bathrooms renovated, the gymnasium was renovated, and much more. And there's an important clarification when considering these improvement costs. So of the $7.4 million raised, more than 75% came from foundations and private donors. So relying on the lease, stating that we could either occupy the facility for 20 years or recoup our capital improvement cost if the lease was terminated sooner, we were able to raise millions of dollars, predominantly through private donors and foundations, to be able to transform this building into the state-of-the-art facility that it is today. So DeKalb County has conditionally approved, not approved nor denied, but conditionally approved the Museum School for a 3-year term in exchange for our agreement to 8 conditions. Some of the required conditions include signing a revised lease to replace the current valid lease, expanding the attendance zone, agreeing to additional financial requirements, increasing the weight for our weighted lottery, and more. And of the 8 conditions, there is only one that the Museum School just simply can't agree to, and that's the revised lease. The revised lease reduces the current lease term that has 10 years remaining to only 3, eliminates the district's responsibility to repay the school over $7 million of improvements upon termination, and includes a new provision that allows the district to terminate the lease at any time if they determine that the building is unused. We believe that the conditions for renewal mandated by DeKalb County Schools are inconsistent with our charter contract and the Georgia Charter Schools Act, which is expressly part of our charter contract. And as a party to this contract, we need you to weigh in. We can't sign this petition, and as a result, we're not sure where that leaves us for charter renewal, and we need your help. And finally, though our primary concern is the students, staff, and families of the museum school, there are undoubtedly underlying implications for proper local charter authorizing throughout our state. Thank you for your time and consideration, and of course, I and our team would be glad to answer any questions that you have.
Before I ask for questions from those in attendance, I want to make sure that we give Martha or a chance to ask. She's joining us remotely. Martha, do you have any questions?
No, it was a great presentation, and it's really shined a light on all the questions that I had. Thank you.
Sherry, Dennis, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions at this time either. To reiterate what Ms. Zoller said, I found it to be a very insightful presentation. Thank you very much for sharing all that background with us.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from those who are present?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I'm not on the committee, but I would like to ask some questions if I could. But if there are committee members that have questions, they should have priority, so.
Kick it off.
All right.
I was about to call on Mike. Let me go ahead and do that first. Mike, would you?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, thank you, Ms. Coa. And as you mentioned, my signature is on the current contract. I remember doing that and thinking about what a bright light the school is for the citizens of DeKalb County, and how many parents get up every morning. We talk about local control. And what's more local than a parent getting up and choosing to drive their child to schools because they believe that's the best opportunity for their child to be academically successful. And I think charters are as close as we can get to local control, and take those, and I know many of our board feel that way. So getting in specifically to this contract renewal and what we have purview over as this board, you answered part of one of my main questions was really I'm familiar with the academic progress. It's been outstanding. You mentioned you missed one mark in your current contract, but I was trying to look and see what's different in this contract. Let's put building over here for a second. Outside of facility, what's different in this contract versus your expiring contract? You mentioned a few things. I saw some that I read about, and it was about board of directors composition, some staff composition, and student composition to better reflect the community, your attendance zone. So really, other than those things, what's different in this contract versus the other, taking the building and putting it on the side for a second?
Absolutely. So the attendance zone has increased. So our current attendance zone, while it's all of DeKalb County, we do give preference to the 2 elementary districts that are closest to us to try to keep that neighborhood school feel. As part of this new renewal, the expectation would be that our attendance zone was the entire district and there were no preferences there. In addition to that, we put the weighted lottery in place previously, and DeKalb County Schools has required us to double the current weight, which isn't totally applicable because our weight is based on a formula, based on meeting our goal. So there's some confusion there that we've asked for clarification from DeKalb County as well. Another big piece is outside of the very first year after the commission was dissolved in 2011 and we went back to DeKalb, we had a 1-year waiver. Other than that 1 year, we've always had a 5-year charter from DeKalb County Schools. So this is the first time that would be faced with a 3-year charter as well.
And you have a wait list of how many students right now?
Over 800.
It's going to be interesting expanding the zone when you've got a wait list. That's Mr. Dunn.
Mr. Chairman?
I have several questions, actually. First and foremost, what would happen? Let's kind of go down the line here. What would happen if you didn't sign the lease?
We don't know the answer to that. We have been in communication with DeKalb County Schools and very clearly expressed our concern with this lease. We have asked if they would remove the lease from this petition and let us go through renewal, and we would talk about the lease at another point. Their response to that was, we are taking this as you are withdrawing your petition and now are asking that you share with us the communication that you're sharing with parents that the school is closing.
Okay. And do you think DeKalb County really wants you all to continue as a charter school?
Honestly, I don't know. Communication has been a really big challenge. We, back in February of last year, were, as part of the renewal process, thinking about all of our options for renewal and authorization. And one of those options that we obviously talked about was the State Charter Schools Commission. So in February, we asked DeKalb to sit down with us and have a conversation about museum school, their vision for the school, their hopes and dreams, and what renewal and authorization could look like, and they refused to meet, the staff and the board.
You had mentioned that there were 8 unique demands, that when they, I'm trying not to be a lawyer here because I know you all have a very good lawyer, but I'm trying to think the best way to word this. So when they came back and said, no, we're not doing 5 years, we're doing 3 years, we want you to renegotiate this lease agreement. Oh, and by the way, here are 8 other, and I assume one of them was the lease.
Correct.
And I know you'd mentioned a couple, talking about doubling the weight, the 5 to 3. What were some of the other, of those 8 new requirements that they have tried to impose, essentially in a counter offer, really? What are some of the other demands that they've made?
Yes, absolutely. And I know I mentioned this earlier, but I do want to stress that it was not until they posted the agenda items for that special called meeting that we knew that a 3-year charter was on the table, that any of these conditions, the revised lease, and at the time of the November 8th special called board meeting, when the board approved this 3-year recommendation and conditions, at that time, we had not seen the revised lease, nor had the board itself. To go back to answer your question, some of the other conditions that they have put in are around required walkthroughs through the school and a required participation in a performance evaluation and framework. Another has to do with finances, where they want the school to be operating at a certain level. We've gone through a funding cut recently, and so we're challenging and dealing with that. However, it primarily is this facility. All those other pieces we feel like we can work through. It's this facilities piece that is the most troubling.
And the last question I've got is, if your request for a renewal had certain terms, including continuing along, renewing the contract that you have, exercising that first 5-year option, and requesting 5 years, and DeKalb County has come back and has said, oh, we provisionally accept you and renew that charter agreement with us, but here are the terms that you must accept, which is what they've done now. If you go back to them and say, no, we refuse to do that. We have submitted our application. We demand the original terms of our charter agreement. And if you don't accept that, then you have denied our petition, and we're going to the state.
We have attempted that route and essentially said, since we are unable to accept the conditions, we are viewing this as a constructive denial. Their response was, that's not our viewpoint. We have conditionally approved, and the next step would be you essentially withdrawing your petition.
But they haven't conditionally approved, right? I mean, what they've done is they have countered your petition proposal with new terms.
Correct.
And in lawyer parlance, a counter is a rejection. That's right. Legally. All right. Somebody else got a question?
No, keep going.
Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, we do.
Thank you for informing us on museum school, what's the latest. Let me make sure I heard you right, Gus. So your authorizer, DeKalb County, your partner, you asked for a meeting to discuss the terms, and they refused to meet with you?
Correct. That's correct. Both the staff.
For clarifying that.
Yes, the staff and the board.
Thank you for clarifying that. It's, sounds a lot. I'm going to say something here, and I would like to, and I'm not cutting you off but Mr. Brockway is from the State Charter Schools Commission is here. I'd like to hear from you about the possible path that the local charter might be able to become to a state charter school, if you're agreeable to that, after you're finished.
I'm just up to the chair of the committee. I'm happy.
No, we intend to hear from Mr. Brockway,
Okay.
and also Lauren as well, but, and if you're okay, I mean, if you want to go ahead and answer that question right now, please do. Come to the podium.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to come and talk with you about this really important issue. I've got people who are smarter than I am here. I've got our executive director, Lauren Holcomb, and our chief counsel, Saron Lockett, who can help me answer legal questions that you discuss. My understanding thus far, and the way we have talked with the museum school, is that our rules contemplate that they need a formal denial. And the reason for that is we changed our rules a few years ago after discussions with folks in the state legislature, that our process for accepting transfers from district schools was different than our process for new schools. Meaning that, let's say a new school came to DeKalb County and submitted a petition, and DeKalb County said no, and denied that, then that's one path that they could come to the commission. The other path would be that they have a statewide attendance zone. So this is kind of in limbo. I think it's this is probably where the lawyers need to get together. Is this really a denial, or is this not a denial? And I think this is why it's really important to come, and why I appreciate the state board recreating this committee. These sorts of issues, this is the perfect place for these sorts of issues to be hashed out and discussed, and an understanding brought forward. And that's really why we sent the letter to you, Chairman Downey, is we need guidance as to what to do here and how to handle this situation, because it's unique.
Real quick. Buzz, thanks for coming. I appreciate you coming. I know that you're very passionate about charter schools and
Yes, sir.
have been very involved in the evolution and promotion of charter schools in our state. For, I think, everyone's benefit, it's worth rehashing and understanding the relationship that the State Charter School Commission has and its role with this board, the State Board of Education, and the function of your commission and what you all do versus what this committee within the State Board of Education does. We have some newer members.
Yeah.
We even have some people that have been here for a while, and I mean, we've not had to deal with situations like this. So it is good to hear it from you all to make sure, because we're all on the same team. We all want the same thing.
Absolutely.
And so if you can elaborate a little bit on that.
Yeah, as you probably all know, I served in the legislature from 2011 to 2018. I was there when I arrived was shortly after the Supreme Court ruling declaring the previous iteration of the charter school organization unconstitutional. And I voted on the legislation that was eventually placed on the ballot that passed by the voters, and thus this was created. After I left the legislature, House Speaker Ralston appointed me to the position that I'm on now. So the relationship, as I understand it, and our executive director can weigh in on things that I miss, but our principal role is to oversee and oversee the creation of new charter schools that are not locally approved charter schools, and thus, as I mentioned before, if they've either been denied locally, then this acts as a backstop, more or less an appeals committee, to say, all right, well, this maybe, and we have had some of those where once we evaluate the petition, we realize this was just not a good petition and it should not have been approved. But there are others that, just because of various situations that a local district decides we don't want a charter school, and they can come to us and we can evaluate that petition. But then, of course, there are the zoning issue, that the statewide zone and multi-jurisdictional zones that are a perfect place for petitions like that to come. And that's what we do. And then, of course, we oversee the renewal of them and the expansion and various requests, functioning a lot like you folks have done here today, analyzing various petitions from charter schools to do various things within their contract. Our relationship with you on the state board is that you folks, you sign off on what we do. Every petition that we approve comes before you for your consideration as well. And I know that happens we've just renewed some a few months ago. You folks took those up and reviewed those as well. So it is a very cooperative relationship, I think. And my experience thus far in the couple of years I've been on the Charter Commission, it has been. And, we want it to continue to be that way. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, thank you. And that's why I wanted you to come primarily.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mike? Just, Jason was kind of referring to me. I've been on the board for 7 years, my first meeting with Charter.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm trying to grasp right now. Utopia had a great presentation back there. Brighton they're all successful. You guys are being successful. So I struggle with the county board not wanting to support a successful operation.
Yeah.
Now, I'll have to dig deeper into it, but I truly struggle with the fact that there's nobody here from DeKalb to represent themselves today either. So I struggle with that, a board not wanting to promote success. Utopia back there talking about theirs, and
they've done a great job.
And I don't understand it. I guess I have to learn this part of it, but I struggle with the lack of support from a local board for a successful charter.
Ms. Kennemore?
Say it out loud.
With that said, I wonder, have you tried to have mediation between the museum school and DeKalb County? And if so, what type of response have you had, if any, at all?
Yeah, we have not, because we don't, museum school right now is not under our purview. We met with them at their request, before their process, with their renewal process with DeKalb County, hashing through, okay, what paths could they take if DeKalb denied them, or if DeKalb approved them, so just, as a leadership team were exploring all their options, one of them was to come and talk with us and understand what the process was for transferring from a DeKalb County school to a State Charter Commission school. But the way we see it, we don't have any. We're here. I've been calling friends. I called the state senator from this area. I'm hearing from parents. I know our staff are hearing from parents who are concerned or trying to understand. They've got to make decisions, in the best interest of their child. Every parent I've talked to talks about how they love the school and want it to continue and want their child to stay there. And so I think, for me, that's brought a sense of urgency to me, and I hope, in making phone calls and talking to people, and I'm very happy that you folks are considering this, and I hope that you will act in accordance with your rules and the laws that govern you to do what we can, because time is of the essence. I guess if I would add that, I think time is of the essence. Parents have to make decisions. The school has to make decisions, and I would hate to see a delay in this process cause harm to the school because parents had to make decisions.
Well, let me speak just quickly as the interim chair of this committee. First of all, my charge, and I think everybody else it feels the same way. We're very empathetic to the situation you find yourselves in. Our concern, as yours is the welfare of the children and the parents and the staff of that school, because the clock is ticking. Now, we're here today to hear from you. We're not going to render a verdict or anything, but we are going to follow the law and the guidance. And we've consulted our attorneys. We've consulted the Attorney General's office on this. But it's our hope that we can find we can help with some resolution to this, but within the limits of our authority. There's more than a little irony here, just this is a personal comment. My first teaching job was at Avondale High School, and one of my jobs was to go to Forest Hills Elementary 2 days a week. So I started my career there. It's also, I've had some experience with conversion charters as a school administrator and superintendent, and we are all in agreement that this is a successful school. But in the interest of fairness, I think we also need to hear from DeKalb County on this, and they're not represented today as far as I know. But I also know that the clock is ticking. So if there are any other closing comments or if there are any other questions that the committee members would like to ask, this is the time to do it. But I'd also like to give, Buzz, I'd like to give you and Lauren a couple of minutes, and also the school representatives as well before we close.
Well, again, I appreciate you allowing the museum school to come. As I said, we met with them as they were doing their due diligence at the beginning of this process. And again, I applaud the state board for recreating this committee, because this is the place. Many, not our schools, but many of the locally approved schools need some sort of venue and forum to discuss these sorts of things when disagreements or whatever come up. If I could just add one other thing while I've got the podium and have your attention. For a number of years, we've been working on authorizer standards that would be applicable to us and be applicable to all local boards. And it's very close to completion. I think and from our standpoint, we've completed everything. We just need to get it across the finish line, because I think that would help address, if those had been in place, that would have helped address this situation, because it would have provided a framework for DeKalb County and for the museum school to hash this out without having to come, without coming before you. So
And
just
you're
a quick
working
plug.
with the DOE staff collaboratively on those authorizer standards, so
Yes.
we have the same
Yep.
kinds of standards.
Yeah, and we think it's important that the same standards apply to all authorizers in the state of Georgia, which includes us and all the 180 school systems in the state. So that's all I have to say. But I'm happy to answer any other questions that committee members have. Thank you.
Closing comments from the school. Oh, Lauren, go
If
ahead.
you don't mind, I think there was some question around our rule, maybe that it would be helpful just to have some clarity around that before we wrap up our comments. I know that in the past, the commission has accepted local charter transfers, and, you know, we are still happy to consider those. We did consider museum school. There was some pressure from the General Assembly policymakers and budget officials on us to align our rule with the startup rule, which gives local boards of education first right of refusal. You know, a startup charter school has to get a denial from a petition before they transfer it to us. There's lots of reasons for that. Local control, we're all supportive of that. We also want to ensure that when a local charter school transfers to the commission, there's a huge budget impact to the state, because the state picks up all of that funding. Local charter schools don't receive any funding. We have this rule in place that just requires the local denial first, because we are contacted almost weekly by local charter schools that are interested in transferring to the commission. The State Charter Schools Commission cannot accept every single one of those without having a huge impact to the state budget. That's the reason for that rule. For us to be able to move forward considering the museum school, we need some kind of resolution from either the local district or the State Board of Education to just say the renewal terms that have been offered to the school, if y'all are not going to approve them, some kind of notice that you're not going to approve them, and then we could move forward with consideration of those. Thank you.
Thank you. Any closing comments from the museum school?
Just a couple. Again, just to reiterate, thank you for letting us be here today. Obviously, this is a very troubling and heavy situation, considering we have 600 families and about 100 staff members, and our charter ends June 30th of this year. So as we've talked about before, time is definitely of the essence. And just one last reminder. We've tried to negotiate this on our own. We've tried to have the conversations. We've tried to give other options. Let's separate the lease from this, and we're just not getting a response and not any willingness. Again, the response is, well, we're taking this as you're withdrawing your petition, and now you need to tell us how you're communicating to the families that you're closing. So, of course, our comment back has been, we're not closing. What can we do here? So, again, thank you for your help, and on behalf of all of our students, families, and community members and donors and all of those people that surround the museum school every day, just thank you again.
Thank you. Ms. Taylor, anything from the department?
Thank you. Just at this time, we have talked with the museum school. They are undergoing their interview for their renewal process on the 22nd, so I anticipate that they will be back in March.
Have you talked to the cab? Any conversation?
We've had conversations with the CAB throughout this entire process. I would encourage you all to have them here to share their side as well. When we received notification back in May of 2021 from Ms. Kilball about them not having communication with the CAB at that time, we reached out to the CAB to talk to them about their dialogue and communication with the school. They shared that at the time that they had had a number of meetings and conversations with the school. We tried to mediate and get them to have discussions about their renewal process at that time. We've had ongoing conversations with my staff, both the CAB and the museum school, about this process. We've talked to the CAB about the fact that the lease terms are not within the purview of the contract, the charter contract between the three-party agreement. And as such, they submitted the petition to us. We were trying to work with museum school to determine if they wanted us to move forward. Looks like we've come to that agreement. Like I said, their review is on February 22nd. We anticipate that you guys will receive that, whatever that recommendation is on at the March board meeting.
Question for Taylor?
Ms. Taylor, I understand you heard you say back in May, you started trying to encourage, almost a year ago, you started trying to encourage them to get together on this?
We received first notification in May. At that time, we talked with the CAB. The CAB had outlined the number of meetings that they'd had about the renewal process already. We encouraged them to continue discussions at that time. Yes, that is correct.
And, back to the lease, I mean, I understand, I say one, being on this golly, how many lawsuits been in over 12 years of my job here on the state board, to be a lot, but when a lease is being used as a tool to try to
eliminate.
Yeah, I'm trying to pick my words very carefully, but my thesaurus isn't going very well right now. When it's being used as a weapon, if that's the case, we haven't heard from the CAB, but if at least contract's being used as a weapon on the others, I think that's when it does become part of it, because that's when it becomes germane. It's a third-party agreement outside of that, but when it gets interjected into those negotiations, I think is when it really becomes germane to that. And because this smells and looks and tastes like it's walking like a duck and talking like a duck of a constructive denial. Putting terms out, I mean, that's what you do when you negotiate. But where are we? The other thing, I guess, the question you can't answer that. On the authorizer, I know over the years it's come up and it gets pushed to the front and goes to the back. I mean, we've had a pandemic, we've had a lot. Please don't take this any. But where are we with that? What are our plans? Is there a time frame?
So you all approved the actual authorizer standards a few months ago. So the standards are in place. Right now what we're working through are the evaluation metrics and measures. And yes, the pandemic was an issue, but I think even outside of the pandemic, the language and the law for the authorizer standards went into effect in April of 2017, or July of 2017. And so we had 17, 18, 19, where nothing occurred. And then in 2019, we really started getting some movement on the authorizer standards. And yes, you had the pandemic, and then you approved the actual standards after that point.
Mr. Chairman?
Back to the standards issue, I think the law requires or contemplates 2 years of data.
2 years, yes, 2 years of essentially unfavorable review on the authorizing system.
Okay. I know you're not, let me think of the best way to ask this. And I'm getting tongue-tied a little bit about this too, because I'm trying to be very careful in how I word what I'm asking. When a charter school goes back to a local education agency and asks to renew their charter, and they say, hi, we're the museum school, we've been a charter in DeKalb County, here are the terms of the charter renewal that we want. Okay? And the system says, we approve you, but we don't want what you proposed, here's what we want at that point. I assume this comes up, and usually there is a happy medium that is found between school systems and charter schools. Am I right?
Usually there's some version of an approval process, yes. So you've had situations where there have been 5-year renewals requested, which is typically the request. And over the years, there have been a number of sort of 3-year approvals that have been granted, sort of like a probationary period for local charter schools by the local Board of Education that have also been approved by the state board. I mean, that's been in effect since probably 2016, 2015.
I guess my question really here may be a legal question, but and I know Stacy's on the line, but if the petition requested, let's forget about the lease. All right, let's talk about the actual petition itself for the renewal of the charter. If that petition requests 5 years, and this, and again, we haven't heard from DeKalb County on this, but if what they did was say, we approve it, but only for 3, that's not approving it. That is a counter proposal. And the museum school does not accept the counter proposal. I don't see how this is not a constructive denial by the local board. Now, I am a lawyer, but I don't specialize in education law, although that is changing very quickly with my term on this board. But I would love to hear from Stacy, and if she can weigh in on this, if there is anything to be weighed in on.
At this time, no, there isn't anything to be weighed in on. As Tiffany said in the past, there have been schools, charter schools, that have sought local approval that have sought a 5-year charter. And in the end, it was settled on there being a 3-year charter or some other charter term. So it's not completely unusual. Again, we don't know all of the facts or the circumstances. So it's very difficult to really kind of opine as to what may have occurred and what effect that may actually have on this process with museum school.
I would ask Stacy. Hey, this is Mike. I'm trying to respectfully maybe disagree with one thing you just said about it not being unusual. I think it is unusual. It's not unheard of. In the times that we've done it, where we've gone on a 3, there were significant performance issues. Financial, I know we've done it before because of significant financial issues. There was a significant governance issue within the school that they had a corrective action plan in place, and it was a 3-year renewal to let that corrective action plan be in place and then take another bite at the apple. It wasn't over this because I'm by any, my first committee was charter. Then I came on 12 years ago, and by any reasonable, I won't even use the reasonable, by any highest bar we've set for traditional LEAs or charter schools, museum is in that top.
That's right. All right, well, let me follow up on what Mike's saying, because you're talking about it, forget that we are talking about the museum school here. In your scenario, a school that requests a 5-year renewal that has governance issues, unlike the museum school, and they are told 3 years. That's our counter proposal. That charter still could choose to say no.
Yeah, correct.
What has happened in the past is because of governance issues or because of performance issues, they have chosen, well, you know what, you're right, we'll do 3 years. That's not what we have in this scenario. We don't have any reason why the museum school would opt to do anything but 5 years.
Exactly.
They're sorry.
But
As far as we know.
Yeah, as far
correct.
as
Now, we have not,
And
we need to hear.
Let's be careful here about I don't want to mislead anyone in this room to think that we're heading toward a decision. Because all of us, and believe me, we've spent a lot of time talking about this, are aware of the law that binds this board in terms of how we take decisions that come with a recommendation for approval from a local board. Now, yes, I hear, Mike, I hear exactly what you're saying, and I agree with it 100%. I hear what you're saying. I agree with it 100%. Doesn't change the law.
Yeah.
It doesn't change the law. Now, I think there's got to be some way to resolve this, but at this point, this board doesn't have any latitude. Unless we can, some other shoes have to drop, and I'm not sure that's gonna happen. And I wanna make sure that we're not getting too far out on a ledge here where, because we'd love to do something that we're not authorized to do. And I'm certainly not gonna put Ms. Taylor on the spot, because she's not an attorney, and I appreciate Ms. Super Drake's opinion on this.
Actually, she is.
Actually,
Not
you
the
are
board's
an
attorney. I am not the board's attorney. That is
Okay.
He is an attorney, yes.
I stand corrected.
Add that to her list.
Okay, yeah, okay. Well, that's another point in your favor there. My point is though, we need to get some more information. We need to do what we can and what we're authorized to do, but we can't go beyond what we're bound to do by the law.
Stay in our lane.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, having said that, I do want to thank Ms. Kelbaugh, and I promised you'd be out of here by 3 o'clock, and I think we're going to make that. But if any of you can stay, because we're going to have to break in a minute to get the agenda set for tomorrow's meeting. If you'd like to stay, if we could have some conversation, we may have some other questions. I'd be glad for you to do that. We could talk informally. Buzz, Lauren, thank you both for being here. And those who you brought with you. But at this point, I'm going to say that the Charter and District Flexibility Committee, you got one more question or comment?
One thing, we've heard a lot of good comments today. I would love for us to give the same opportunity to DeKalb to come back next month. And we've heard one side, there's always two sides.
We're going to do that.
They have to,
We're going to do that.
because their charter will be brought to us
Yeah, their charter will be
in
here.
March.
Because the clock's ticking, there's decisions have to be made.
They don't have to come, if they don't come, I mean,
Regardless, we're gonna invite.
they'll be invited.
Now,
They'll be invited.
again, but any other comments or questions? Okay. I'm gonna adjourn this meeting, and then we'll take a short recess, or I'll turn it back over to the chair.
Yeah, I think that concludes, unless there's any other committee business that hadn't been handled. Officially, the meetings are adjourned for the day. We will come back tomorrow for our actual board meeting at 9 a.m. But anyone can stay if you want to, if you've got nothing better to do.
Here too.